Shalom, my friend. This is Matt Joseph, and I'm here because I have a very, very, very special guest right here for the interviews. He's here virtually because, the world is exploding and the world is a mess. And so we're doing everything virtually right now. And he is the owner, editor-in-chief at Next Best Picture. He is the host of one of my favorite podcasts, the Next Best Picture podcast. Which you should all subscribe to, and you can find it in the description box below. And he is a fellow film person, a mega awards pundit. My friends, this is Matt Neglia.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to be here doing what is ultimately my first video interview, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah, other than a job interview or a meeting for work.
Wow.
I've never ever done any form of video media related to the film world.
Welcome. I'm honored to be your first person then.
Awesome.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about Next Best Picture, how you got started, tell everyone what and who you are.
Yeah, so I started Next Best Picture primarily because, like everybody else, I love movies. I went to film school, realized that production was not necessarily the path that I wanted to go down anymore. And after I graduated from college, I was kind of like left in limbo for a little bit. I didn't really know where I was going, what I wanted to do. But I continued to write about movies, talk about movies. And sure enough, over time, people were like, you're pretty good at this. Like, you're like the ultimate hype man, I feel like. So You should hype up movies in some way. And basically what that meant was I should get involved in the film criticism world. And that actually kind of then started to become more about awards punditry, more so than film criticism, because I was a huge, huge fan of so many different awards pundits. I listened to their podcasts, and they always inspired me as a fan. And I slowly but surely just kind of one step, I literally had no experience whatsoever. And all I knew was that I just really, really wanted to do this. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I just knew that I wanted to do it. I had a vision for what I wanted Next Best Picture to be. I knew how I wanted to kind of slide into the space. I wanted to be, you're not supposed to do both. You're only supposed to do one or the other. Right. And I said, no, I think we're going to try and do both. And it's funny because now I look back on it and I know now why people don't do both, because it's a lot of work. But I think I'm doing pretty okay with it so far.
I mean, in full transparency, you are absolutely one of the people that has inspired me to do what I'm doing. And absolutely, you were one of, if not the first, awards film people I started reading and really listening to podcasts. I listen to every single episode, and I look at everyone's predictions, and I love seeing the differences everyone has. I love the discussions that you have with your team, and I feel like you guys are such a family, which is something that I really, really appreciate, because I like you, I think there are film people out there who kind of just like to critique movies. But I think you guys really like to discuss, which I really, really like. You don't like to crap on anything. It's a discussion. And if let's say the most controversial film of last year, Frozen, Jesus, Joker, Frozen. Yeah. Joker, is like a really controversial film, and you guys had a very open discussion about it. And some people were into it. Some people weren't. It wasn't like, you are wrong for this. This movie is bad for the world. You can think that, but it's not bad to think a certain way. And I just really appreciate how you go about your family. That's something that I have tried to do in my channel, tried to make it sort of a welcome, open space. If you want to talk to me, talk to me. I'm happy to talk. I'm not going to crap on anyone,
Yeah, I've seen firsthand a couple of people in this space before be extremely close-minded and be rude, not just on digital platforms, but even in person, when I go to screenings and stuff.
I'm sure
there seems to be this old guard jadedness sometimes within the film critic community. And I really wanted to celebrate openness and respect, and really try to bring in as many people as possible into the conversation. Because at the end of the day, it's not about I'm right, you're wrong. I never wanted to treat this like politics.
Yes.
I wanted to treat it as a celebration, like you said, a place where people could gather to just celebrate the things that they loved. Because I think a lot back to when I first started, and this is kind of like tying, I guess, everything together. When I was lost and I didn't really know what the purpose of my life was, and I was in my like mid to late 20s, and I figured I really should kind of start figuring that out. I think a lot back on my mindset during that time, and if there's anyone else out there that's lost or doesn't know where to get started, or they just want to feel like they're a part of something, I'm form has been able to do that, because that was always an intention of mine and a goal that I wanted to achieve. And so hearing your own story reflect that is very, very gratifying for me. And I really appreciate that.
I mean, yes, of course. Yeah, I don't know what this channel would be without you and your podcast. And like, you know, like I like everyone, or most people I know, like I always liked movies. And then throughout the years, I started like loving them. And then I always just was fascinated by the awards season, whether it was the Academy Awards, the Emmys, the Grammys, the Tonys. I always liked it. I was always fascinated by it, and I liked studying it. And then I was like, I can't be the only one who likes this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I found so much. And that's kind of like...
There was a time where I legitimately thought I was. Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah. Like you were the only person.
And it felt like that. It really did. I remember it was 2003, and the Oscars that got me into the Oscars was the year of Lord of the Rings: Return to King, sweeping, because that was my favorite film at that time.
I was going to say, isn't it one of your favorite films?
Still to this day, Lord of the Rings, my favorite film. Yeah. Oh, it's the top of the mountain.
That's what I thought. And I was going to hire. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so seeing that film win 11 Academy Awards, I remember thinking, oh, this is so great. Like, my favorite film wins awards. That's so cool. And I also remember being the type of student in school when it came won like awards or anything like that. I, wasn't really like a quote unquote a winner, if you will. And so seeing that reflected, though, where it's like something that you love could be honored like that, was really, really cool to me. And I remember shortly right after that, I discovered Awards Daily, Sasha Stone's website, and I started reading from there. Next thing you know, I'm reading Chris Tapley, I'm following Ann Thompson, Clayton Davis, and all these big names, and realizing that there is this world of awards punditry. And like I said, those are the people who really like inspired me to want to someday be in that world. And it's funny because as years have gone on, I've learned so much about the Oscars, and also learned how to approach the Oscars. And it's all about not getting emotionally invested in them anymore.
Yeah.
It's really, really have to distance yourself completely from it all and treat it like it is a political campaign, but with less stakes, essentially. That's really what it just comes down to. Is at the end of the day, you're following a campaign, an awards campaign, and it plays by the same rules as politics, but you can all take a deep breath and know that just because Green Book wins over Roma doesn't mean that your world as you know it has fundamentally changed forever and is going to have like such drastic impact on you that is going to negatively impact your day-to-day or anything like that. Yeah, it might suck and you may not like it or whatever, but at the end of the day, there are so many more important things that are happening like out in the real world and real politics and so on and so forth. So just having that perspective is something that I've had to learn over time, because I used to be so emotionally invested in the Oscars. I will never forget. I was at my friend's house party. I was like 20 years old at the time or something. I was completely drunk out of my mind. I will never forget. It was like 2:00 in the morning or something crazy. the DGA awards were happening, and Tom Hooper beat David Fincher for the DGA award. And I remember thinking, oh my God, Tom Hooper's going to win the Oscar, and like freaking out about this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I like in their teenage years and stuff, and they are so emotionally invested in stan culture and everything else. And it's like, hey, listen, when you get your heart broken enough time, on perspective, wisdom, and you'll be able to appreciate this so much more, because you'll learn lessons in defeat that you'll be able to take with you into the following year, and it's going to make you a better pundit overall. And I think that it's also just super important to just listen to people, just hear different perspectives. Even if you don't agree with them, just be open to whatever people have to offer to the conversation, because there's a world where you get so snobby about your own picks that it's very, very easy to, once again, be very close-minded about the whole thing.
I could not agree more with literally everything you just said. I love that. Wow. Okay, that was inspiring. I love that. Let's do a quick getting to know you game thing. All right. You kind of already answered this. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time is easily The Lord of the Rings, and don't you dare tell me to shot it once. They are one movie as far as I'm concerned.
What's your opinion on Kill Bill 1 and 2?
One movie.
Fair.
I know that even in Tarantino's like own mind, because he's saying he's going to stop at 10, he counts it as one movie. So that's all the evidence I need right there.
Favorite actors?
Actors. And when we say actors, are we saying male actors, or are you saying actors, actors and actresses?
I always just use actors as a general actresses.
Yeah. No, I figured. That's why I wanted to know. Okay, wow.
I know it's a deep question, and there's like 1,000, like
so many.
Gun to your head.
I'll keep it very simple. I'll do 2 and 2. Okay, this is really hard.
I know.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Ooh.
Jake Gyllenhaal, and normally I would say Leonardo DiCaprio. But lately, I really have this thing for Tom Hardy lately, because I think that he, like Jake, they're creating unique characters all the time, changing their voices, physical appearance, getting like really, really immersed into the characters that they're playing. So I'm always very curious to see what they will bring to a film role. Even something like Venom, which I think is pure garbage, Tom Hardy at least tried to do something interesting with it. So I can always admire that about those two guys. And then on the actress side, I love Amy Adams, as does everybody. I think she is just a phenomenal talent. And I really, maybe it's redheads. I don't know what the deal is, but I was going to say Julianne Moore. I'm a huge Julianne Moore fan. I think that she's also incredible in pretty much everything I watch her in. But there's so many. I mean, I love Nicole Kidman. I love Viola Davis. I mean, my God, Denzel Washington. I was just watching Flight again recently, and
no, he's so they are both Viola Davis and Denzel are
incredible
favorites. Like
I don't even like fences like that much. Sparring matches is exhilarating cinema. It's incredible.
It's so good. Okay. You might have also answered this. Your favorite moment in Oscar history?
Oh, wow. Okay.
You can give me a 3 if you want. And they don't have to be in order, because I know that's 92 years of cinema.
You know what I'll do? I'll only count from when I started watching. So from 2003 on, top 3 moments. Starting at number 3, I will say the Lord of the, I'll discount the Lord of the Rings thing because I already brought it up, so I'll say something else. Martin Scorsese winning Best Director for The Departed was something that I wanted for him. So many people wanted for him, and I will never forget that standing ovation, everything, and just everybody just so into that moment. And it was so perfect to have Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, and George Lucas up there to give him the award. I still get a bead of sweat thinking, oh my God, what if it was somebody else that won instead? Which is always freaky whenever they do presentations like that.
Right.
But that was like one of those really, really just great feel-good moments. Number 2, La La Land and Moonlight. I was very, very firm in my prediction that, well, not firm. I won't say I was firm. But I, like everybody, couldn't deny La La Land's precursor sweep in the lead up and how much it just completely dominated the whole season. So I predicted La La Land to win, but I remember in the back of my mind telling people, guys, I don't think this is as open and shut as we think. And people were very much like adamant, nope, it's going to be La La Land, it's going to be La La Land. And I remember like, I don't know, it's like, especially after Moonlight won WGA, I remember and thinking to myself, like, no, there's a path. Like, there's a way that this happens. And sure enough, it happened. And, of course, probably the biggest moment in Oscar history with the envelope mix-up. And then number 1, most recently, is Parasite. Just that was such an exhilarating moment of just joy. And I think what I liked more so than even the moment itself was going on YouTube or just on Twitter afterwards and seeing everybody's video reactions and seeing how everybody across the entire world reacted to that win with just such joy and jubilation. It was incredible. And that's a feeling that we need to hold on to and cherish and remember, because it's not always like that.
No, it's not. And you named 2 of mine, so yeah, I was one of those people. I saw your reaction too. It was just like, it was just pure joy. It was amazing. Yeah. It was wonderful. If you could add one Oscar category, what would it be? Not necessarily taken away in place of that, but
Mm-hmm. I would add. I would add something for voiceover acting.
That's mine.
Oh, nice.
I've always said that.
The other 2 are casting and stunts.
Exactly.
And those are ones that I still have questions. Yeah, I still have questions about both of those in terms of like, well, with casting, is it just going to be something that always goes to the Best Picture winner? Is there a correlation like in regards to the SAG Ensemble Award? Wouldn't it be treated like that? Like, does it go to the casting director? Does it go to the individual actors? I just have like a lot of questions. And the same thing with like stunts, who just go to the stunt coordinator. And then on top of that, it's like, when it comes to stunts, I am worried about like a mentality that could push people to do more dangerous and crazier stunts, not for the sake of the storytelling, but maybe for the sake of winning an Oscar awards. But yeah, there might be some sort of a mentality that takes over some people's minds there. So I do worry a little bit about that. But I don't think it's not something I'm terribly worried about. But voice acting is something that I feel like is long overdue, not just for animation, but for things like CGI motion capture work. Like, I always think to myself, well, that's how Andy Serkis becomes an Oscar winner, or Scarlett Johansson might win for Her, or something along those lines. And I think that that's just a really, really cool way to honor actors still in something that otherwise doesn't normally get the recognition it deserves, because there is a lot of talent, time, and energy that gets put into voiceover work, and it doesn't get the respect it deserves.
That makes me so. I just released a video of my top 10 Disney soundtracks, and Aladdin was obviously on there, and I said there is no reason Robin Williams should not have an Oscar for Aladdin.
I agree.
And I also just did an interview with one of my friends who's like voices Nurse Joy in Pokemon, and like the work that she puts into that is really tremendous. It's such I don't know, they don't get enough credit, and that has always been my answer. I'm like, yeah, stunts, yeah, casting. Voiceover has always been my passion. So I'm glad that you feel that way. I don't meet many people who say that. I love that.
No, and it's like one of those things too where, like I said, they're never going to get nominated in the actual acting categories. Critics groups will tend to throw a bone or two here and there, if it's like truly like undeniable work from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But could you imagine if, could you like just imagine, like Amy Poehler could be an Oscar winner for Inside Out for all we know. You know what I mean?
And they should.
Yeah.
Okay, a few more. Favorite quote from a movie?
Okay. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
And you get an A+ for everything you just did.
Trying for a trying.
I think that you should probably go into another career path.
No. We're good over here.
All right.
I do have control over this vocal bad boy, but I think I'm all right.
I don't know. It's pretty good. Movie you're embarrassed you love, and a movie you're embarrassed you're not so into. I don't like using hate because,
Sure. Movie that I'm embarrassed to love. Yeah. Oh, that's tough. Armageddon? Maybe Armageddon?
Sure. It could be like a guilty pleasure movie.
Yeah, I'd say Armageddon. It's stupid. It's silly, but it gets me every time. I like that movie a lot.
I like that movie too, actually.
And then, so now, actually, you know what? This question's even harder for me because most movies that are typically regarded as good or just universally accepted as good, I don't like. I as you can tell by my approach and listening to my show, I find the positives in almost everything. So it's really, really difficult for me to find something that is universally loved, but I don't happen to like it.
You don't have to answer this one either if you don't even want to. It's okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's like, all right, fine.
I mean,
I do feel like I am getting a little bit more risky every year where there is something that's like stirring the pot a little bit with people and it's considered controversial. And there's something about like, I like that. I find that interesting. I find it interesting that people have such intense reactions to movies, like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I liked the movie quite a bit when I saw it, but then after it got like beat up a lot by a lot of people, I started to like it even more. Same thing kind of happened a little bit with Joker last year, where I liked Joker, and then I heard everybody's criticisms about it, and it kind of made me like, not so much, and I think you remember this too from our podcast discussion. I liked the discussion around Joker more than I actually liked Joker itself.
Yep, I remember.
So, yeah, there's like a movie or two every year, quote unquote, trash movie to people that I like it because I like what it does to us from a human behavior standpoint. Like I look at movies like Assassination Nation, which people know I raved about when I saw it.
Good movie.
Guys, this is a midnight cult classic movie in the making, and crazy about this. And I'm just more fascinated by people's reactions sometimes to these movies, more so than the movies themselves.
Totally, I understand that. All right, let's see. Last question: candy or popcorn at the theater?
Candy.
Which candy?
Let's go with Reese's Pieces.
That's so good. One of my last interviewers said that she puts the Reese's Pieces in the popcorn.
I do that too.
Do you? I didn't know that was a thing, and she told me that. And I
have an ex-girlfriend who showed me that one time, and I've never broken away from it since, other than the fact that I don't typically like getting popcorn. So if I'm going to the movies with someone and they get popcorn, I'll ask, hey, is it cool if I put my candy in the popcorn? And if they're cool with it, then I'll do it that way. But if they're like, wait, what? Why do you want to do that? Then I'll be like, oh, forget I asked. It's fine. You enjoy your popcorn.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I guess, movie theaters, let's get into the world right now.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. when was the last time you went to go see a movie?
I saw Saint Maud a few days ago, actually, before everything went pretty crazy. I'd say it's been about maybe, I think it was a Thursday, and then the following like the following week is when the movie theaters closed. So that was the last movie I saw in an actual movie theater. But it wasn't even a movie theater; it was like a screening room. I was seeing it early. So yeah, it's pretty insane.
I was going to say, you can just kind of go on the vent of like how this is impacting not just like the box office, but like the Oscars and like just like kind of the world as we know it in regards to movies, as in regards to like our lives. Because I know that this is not just affecting like the Oscars race, because, you know, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but like In the Heights was supposed to have like a summer release, and now it's gonna be released later, closer to like more Oscar kind of buzz season, which I'm excited about. But is it really gonna help it? Is it gonna have a negative impact being closer to West Side Story? So how are you feeling about all of this? That was a giant question, and you can take your time and ignore certain things. You go and just vent.
So I tend to live my life a quarter mile at a time. To quote, no, I'm kidding. No, in all honesty, everyone who knows me over at Next Best Picture knows that I live my life maybe only 2 weeks out. I don't take vacations. I don't typically tend to plan things far ahead because schedules are always changing. There's always a lot on my plate in terms of coordinating stuff, in terms of just running the site. I mean, I have a 9-to-5 day job on top of all of that, and I do try to have some balance of a social life, which is really, really hard to maintain. But you know, I make do, all things considered. So 2 weeks is usually like the way I live my life. Anything beyond 2 weeks out, I can't make a firm commitment on. So when I think about upcoming movies that were supposed to come out months from now and things of that nature, I'll be honest with you, they're not on my mind at all. Like, the only thing that was on my mind when all this happened was A Quiet Place 2 and Mulan, because those were the next 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Beyond that, I couldn't even tell you what was coming out the week after Mulan, if I'm being completely honest with you. I just don't look at it that way because I have so much in my mind, and I tend to get scatterbrained a little bit. So I need to make sure that I'm as organized as humanly possible with an allotted time frame that I completely understand. Now, big picture, taking a step back and looking at it now from a standpoint of all these individual releases, I can't really tell you what's going to happen there necessarily. But what I can tell you, just like from a objective point of view of just looking at this very, very high level, I think that a lot of movies that are typical awards bait movies that don't have long production schedules. They can be shot in like less than a month, and then they have their post, and that's only like a few months. So movies that were like maybe in the middle of shooting now, and we're going to head into post over the next couple of months, and then maybe get ready for that fall film festival bow. It's very, very possible that that doesn't happen. What we might end up seeing is those films get pushed to next year completely. Everything just essentially gets pushed. It's like this whole time period will become a point in our lives where movies just didn't happen, period. And there'll be like this gap in history almost. I also think that there are some productions that will inevitably shut down completely and not be reopened again, maybe, as a result of that. So there'll be movies that were, you know, in the middle of being made and might be lost forever because of this, which is unfortunate, because they all don't have the budgets and, you know, the planning and such to be able to
studio
round two. Yeah, exactly. Let's get the band back together again. So the movies that do have the big money behind them and the big studios and such, we might be heading for something very unprecedented where the Oscars this year could be going to the major studios in a very major way. No Time to Die could potentially be like a huge Oscar movie. Wonder Woman could be a big Oscar contender as well. We just don't know at this point. And then the other thing too is like there are some movies that I think will be able to get released still around that, like the Fall Film Festival window. There's so many ways, because we're obviously taking this as on a like a day by day basis in terms of the developments of the virus, how the government is responding to it. So it's really, really hard to predict exactly what could happen. The Academy could decide we're not going to have the Oscars on this date. We're moving the date, and then now we'll allow other movies besides the big studio films to then be ready in time. So the Oscars may not happen in February. They might happen
April.
I don't know, no, maybe even longer than that, maybe like June or May or something. You know what I mean? It could be something insane like that. But
do you think if that happens, then
I don't think
the next Oscars would go to like, if let's say they're in June, do you think that the next Oscars would still be in February?
I think so.
Normal to have movies.
Yeah, I think so. But then again, I also don't even know if that's a route that this is all going to go in anyway. It's just an idea. Honestly, if anybody tells you right now, without like talking directly to an Academy representative or something like that, what is going to happen, they don't really know. Nobody knows what's going to happen right now. The other thing that we could see is, I mean, we could be heading just for an all streaming world. And I know people have talked about the death of movie theaters for a very long time. COVID-19 could be essentially the death knell for movie theaters across the country. I mean, I don't want to see that happen, but if the entire country is at a standstill in terms of how they consume media and entertainment right now, other than through streaming, when life goes back to normal, are people going to be willing to rush back to the theaters right away? Or will this become now such a behavioral norm for us that we're not going to break that cycle now anytime soon? I'm looking at all these movies like Never Really, Sometimes, Always, The Invisible Man, and, new movies that are going to be going straight to digital VOD, premium. And we've always talked about for so long, if you could pay a little bit more than what you pay in a movie theater to watch it at home, would you? I find it funny that there are people who always said yes, and now that the moment is happening, they're like, oh, $20 is too much. I don't think so. And I'm just like, I find that very funny. But I understand it's also a rental.
It's like when people say, like, I don't know what I would do if I would be so happy if I could just kind of like stay home and do nothing. And now people are like, I need to get out.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I wish that I didn't. I wish I had more free time, but I don't. Unfortunately, because I still got to run MVP. I'm still working. I'm working from home, and I'm fortunate. I know there are a lot of people that aren't working from home right now, but I'm still struggling to find time to watch series that I have been dying to catch up on, or VOD releases and stuff. So. Nothing for me is like kind of changed in that sense in terms of like time allotment. If anything, what I have gained from all of this is I've gained more hours of sleep, which I really appreciate because I don't have to travel. you know?
Go to these festivals right now.
Yeah. So my overall health has probably increased, ironically, because I know for a lot of people they're struggling to, eat healthy, maintain like physical exercise, but on a personal level, COVID-19 hasn't impacted me as much as I thought it would, but I can totally understand how it is impacting individuals, society, and the industry all around.
I'm the same way.
I think, and people will call me maybe ignorant or something like that for viewing it this way, but at the end of the day, I am trying to maintain a sense of optimism about this whole thing. And I am trying to, it's like I want to be considerate towards other people that really are struggling out there. But at the same time, I don't want it to negatively impact me on a psychological level because we're in this for the long haul as far as I'm concerned. This is not a 2-week thing. This is not a 1-month thing. This is going to be a very, very long process of isolation, quarantine, until a vaccine is announced. And then it's going to be however long after that before we all start getting it. And then we can return to normal then. And that's probably a year and a half process, in all honesty. So I think that we all just need to take a deep breath, realize that things are going to change, adapt, and at the end of the day, just try very, very hard not to panic. I think that that's super important right now. Is just like, just don't panic. We've seen enough movies to know what happens when people start panicking in these situations. I've been watching a lot of post-apocalyptic and a lot of pandemic movies over the last couple of days. And the
How many times have people watched Contagion lately?
Yeah. Oh, Contagion was, whew, on a rewatch. That was crazy. How
So funny.
was the parallels to today. Insane. But yeah, don't panic. Stay connected as much as you possibly can. You know, us doing like this chat right now, I think is great because it reminds me of what it's like to still have that form of human interaction at the end of the day, and that's super important. So,
I
I think we will all get through this. The thing that I also take comfort in is that everybody's being impacted from this. Nobody's immune to it. Nobody
Doesn't
is.
matter how rich you are, how poor you are. I mean, everyone is feeling it, no matter
Yeah.
where you are, physically, financially, sexually, religiously. Like, nothing matters.
No prejudice
Where you are
whatsoever.
in the country, no one is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might be fortunate enough to have a roof over their head. Some people might not. But everyone, no matter who you are, is somehow feeling this.
Yeah, exactly. So take comfort in knowing that you're not alone in what it is you're going through, and that there is support out there to get us through these tough times right now. I can't tell you how many people have just reached out to me and just said, "Thank you so much for like continuing to do the podcast." It's like something that, in terms of like a daily routine for some people, they just really, really appreciate still having that. Yeah, exactly. And I recognize how important that is now more than ever for people. So.
I've gotten the same responses from my videos. People are like, I'm stuck inside, but like I've been doing these live streams lately just to like chat with people who want to talk about what's happening in the world. Not just like, yeah, I'm happy to talk about movies. That's what I'm there for. But like, people are like, how are you and your fiance doing? Like, we're supposed to get married in June and we don't really know what's happening,
Yeah, my sister was supposed to get married in April. That's been pushed off a year now at this point. So it's
hard, but we have to figure it out.
It's impacted everybody differently, like I said before. And I think we will get through it. I think we will get through it together.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know when it's going to be necessarily. I don't know if it's a year and a half, like I said, 10 months, whatever. But I know it's coming. And we all should know that too. So
speaking of kind of just, we were talking about pushing things back.
Mm-hmm.
So the Golden Globes, the HFP had said that like, now movies are going to go like digitally, and that they'll be able to be recognized for the Golden Globes. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think everybody needs to, if they want to have an award show, they need to adopt that mentality like immediately. This whole theatrical window run. And it's very important, like I said before, to not make this a precedent for future years. This is a one-off, one-time exception thing that everybody needs to be super clear in their messaging on, because otherwise, if you don't make that clear and this does become the norm, that is how theaters die. Right. So nobody wants that. And
like Patty Jenkins said that like she's not going to release Wonder Woman on digital because it's a movie she wants people to see in theaters. So like, I think movies like that, and I hope the big like, Oscar movies, like Mank, Trial of Chicago 7, Five Bloods, they don't go straight to digital because those are movies that I personally I want to see in a theater. So I'm hoping that even if they're like they're not the blockbuster films, they do still, I would rather them keep pushing them back to keep theaters alive, and so that I and other film lovers can see movies in theaters.
Yeah, I would prefer waiting longer for those movies to have that theatrical experience than I would with workarounds and things like that to meet a deadline window of when the Oscars are going to be held in February again this year.
Right.
I think that would be all around just a better way to go about things. I mean, with all the film festivals that have already been pushed off in the spring, I mean, think about it from this perspective. If by May, there's no end in sight necessarily to when this is all going to be resolved, you just know that Venice, Telluride, and TIFF are on the chopping block next.
Yep.
So, this is very, very serious, because then if that does happen, what are they going to do? Are they going to release them all digitally? And if they release them all digitally, you got to make the exception. You got to embrace it then this year if you're going to stick firm to that date. if you don't stick firm to that date and you decide, nope, we're going to push everything just as film releases are being pushed off, everything's just going to be pushed off. Like I said, then we're going to just have this gap in human history where nothing was happening in the film world, essentially. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, going back to what I was saying before about the Oscars and just having perspective and looking at everything from like a big picture standpoint, there are bigger things happening right now than trying to have this celebration of a medium that we love. But how can we celebrate the medium if the medium is currently broken at the moment in terms of how we're consuming? Can you imagine an Oscar year last year where we never saw Parasite in the movie theater with the audience's reactions to all the big twists and everything, and you only ever saw it at home?
No.
I don't want to live in that world this year, personally speaking. I would much, much rather the Oscars decide to push the date, and this way all the other films that, you know, were supposed to compete have time to still compete, but the date has just been pushed. That's it.
And the Oscars could do something like, or even studios, they start like, I don't know about selling, but like putting older movies that are like available for, like they do like discounts on all these movies. Mm-hmm. The Oscars, like the day was supposed to happen, they make a 3-hour video of the greatest Oscar moments, and they like, there's things that people can do to celebrate without having new things, you know, like right now, like for my channel, like I don't have any films to review, which is totally fine, because luckily there's literally over 100 years of movies to celebrate and to discuss. So if I want to talk about Gone with the Wind and do a breakdown of that movie, the 10 greatest moments from that movie, or why Shawshank Redemption is this, or why Avengers is that, something that I can always do and celebrate without, I mean, yes, I want new movies, but there's so much history that we all have that we can celebrate. It doesn't need to die, you know?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's why we're continuing with our 2014 retrospective, which was always supposed to launch in April regardless.
Right.
Now we're probably just going to expand and do more than the original 10 podcast reviews that we were going to do. We might just do a little bit more now just to drag it out a bit, you know, which is totally fine.
People are craving it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that people are really excited about that are coming from our channel that we have planned over the next like couple of weeks.
Can you tell us, or are these things that like I'm not allowed to know about? Can you give the audience, my audience, and hopefully your audience some sneak peeks? Your first video, give me something.
I want to crack video. Problem is that it takes so many hours in a day to edit the video, get it uploaded. I already spend so much time as is on the podcast and everything else that I'm doing with the website that to devote more time, I would have to quit my day job in order to like get it physically done. And I'm just not at a point where I don't tend to dive in and do something unless if I know I'm going to be able to make it a precedent and continue doing it moving forward. I don't ever like to start something and then not see it through. So not ready to do video yet, but we are going to be doing a 2014 retrospective. We are going to keep reviewing pandemic, post-apocalyptic films as long as we can. After this, I'm going to be posting our podcast review of Children of Men, which we recorded earlier this morning. So
excited.
We'll have that up for everyone to listen to. We're going to keep on doing, one-off podcasts for things like Next Best Theater. We have Next Best Adaptation, which is returning, where we will be looking at novel source materials for adapted screenplay contenders. We're also going to be ramping up Next Best Series. So that this way we can be reviewing some of the mini-series that I'm sure people are going to be watching at home this year, especially considering that there won't be much else to watch. So we know that these miniseries are going to be very, very important. And last year, it was like one of the biggest regrets of 2019 for me that we didn't review When They See Us in Chernobyl. So I made it very, very clear to my team this year that I wanted to make sure that we were on top of that this time around. So we're going to definitely be devoting more to that. So I'm really excited.
That is so... Oh, that makes me so excited for you. You know what? Let's just go to the fan questions. Is that good?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I love answering fan questions.
All right. So this is from my friend. Excuse me if I don't pronounce your name right. I'm awful with names, but I try and find out before. Young Gun Choi asked, what is the criteria for a Best Picture nomination, and what is the criteria for a winner?
Wow. Okay. Criteria for a nomination, to be very honest, that that varies. You start off every award season with a list of movies that are regarded as some of the best of the year,
Mhm.
both from audiences, critics. You typically do need audiences and critics to align, usually, but that's not always the case. I mean, the actual process of getting into a Best Picture nomination feels so arbitrary and so random sometimes that it's really, really hard to figure out how does Carol get all these Oscar nominations, but it doesn't get a Best Picture nomination, for example. And there's just so many factors that we'll never, ever just know. We'll never know why Florida Project did so well with critics and should have probably have gotten more nominations than just Willem Dafoe. We'll
That was
never
insane.
know. Ex Machina, is another one where it's like it can win for visual effects, get a screenplay nomination as well, and it's like, could it have gotten in? Maybe, but it's really tough. The winner is a little bit easier because with the winners,
It's a
that's where
trajectory.
you get the campaigns. Exactly. So criteria, I wouldn't say that there's so much of criteria. It's just more of there's a game that gets played, and it's all about like following the game. Traditionally speaking, in an Oscar race, it's going to come down to two, maybe three, and very extremely rarely four films that are like legitimately going to win.
Right.
Everything else in the conversation is just happy to be there, essentially.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, there are movies that also too. It's like until a day comes where you do have a winner like Parasite.
Right.
You never want to say never. Like all a foreign language film will never win Best Picture because eventually, at some point in a long enough timeline, everything will happen. People say, "Oh, a horror film will probably never win Best Picture ever again," and like Silence of the Lambs is not like real horror, for some people. But never say never. You know what I mean? On a long timeline, anything can happen.
Parasite.
So criteria, that's changing every single day. And I really hate the whole argument about new academy, old academy, and this idea of, old academy members need to like die and new people need to come in. And that's the movies that we love for kind of get like all these Oscar nominations and stuff. Sorry. Like, I'm really sorry, but that's not the way that this works.
Right.
And people who are so hopeful about the old guard of the academy not being members anymore and thinking that just because they bring in new people that fit a definition of woke or very young and hip, etc., it's going to like
Woke
satisfy
culture.
what film Twitter wants, essentially, or
Yep.
what letterbox culture wants. It doesn't work like that. It never has. It never will. And you would be so surprised at people that you think are your saviors who love the movies that you love. You'll be so surprised to know that they voted for Green Book as well.
Totally. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Cinematic Art 88 has asked, and I mean, this is one of my favorite genres, I guess. What is your favorite movie musical?
Wow. Okay.
You can give me a 3 because I know I should have no, I don't like giving these questions in advance because I like seeing your surprise and like, oh God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's really, really hard. Okay.
I believe in you.
I know. All right. So in my top 10 of all time,
Give it to me.
well, but here's the thing though. It's not a traditional musical, but I'm going to just throw a bone towards The Lion King for a brief second because The Lion King is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and it does have songs in it.
Absolutely.
But I also know that's not the definition of like the genre of a movie musical. So, but I wanted to at least acknowledge
But that should, I mean, anytime in Lion King can be acknowledged, it should be. So I appreciate it.
There you go. Man. Okay. I really love West Side Story. I really do. I think West Side Story is a perfect film.
It is.
And I am scared to death about the remake coming out this year, even though it is Steven Spielberg, and we shouldn't, in Steven Spielberg we trust. The guy's got amazing track record. So I shouldn't be that nervous, but I am. I think West Side Story is pretty incredible.
I think that's probably my answer, but after we get, hopefully, In the Heights, West Side, and maybe The Prom, then I'm going to release like my top 10 movie musicals of all time.
Nice.
And West Side Story will for sure be on there. Susa391. Hey, Matt, awesome work in the NBP. What are some of your best coming of age movies? Stay safe.
Coming of age movies. Okay.
I can name I think I know.
This is such a broad question. And by the way, I'm doing all this without looking at my phone, by the way.
No, and which is
yeah,
I'm sure during the podcast you're able to like.
I would just be like, yeah, Google and
coming of age movies.
Yeah, exactly, and then look at a list and be like, oh, I like that one. I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, yes.
I guess okay. So I hate saying it because unless if I do see a list, and I can probably then tell you what my favorite is. Sure. But here are just ones that are coming to mind. So it's not going to be
fun this way. You don't have the opportunity to check your work. It's
off
the top of the head.
Stand By Me, The 400 Blows, The Edge of 17.
Yes.
I mean, coming of age movies, I feel like recently have been very good. I think of things like Lady Bird. I loved that movie.
So good.
It is, right? I mean, Moonlight is a coming of age movie at the end of the day. You know, stuff like that counts.
Grade.
Oh, I loved Eighth Grade. My God, yes.
In my top 10 of the decade.
Mm-hmm. Eighth Grade is phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, that's a couple, right?
Yep. I would even throw Booksmart in there. That movie really got me.
I liked Booksmart. That was a lot of fun.
But Lady Bird and Eighth Grade for me are the two biggest ones that come to mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Raymond Warren. Do you believe that animated films such as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Lego Movie should be nominated for the Best Picture category? And what do you consider for Best Picture? Do you choose what impacts you the most? For example, tearjerkers or stories that are telling the most important stories, or do you choose what you personally enjoy the most? Big question. You can go about it however you want.
Whenever I do my top 10, I do take into account a lot of factors. So for me, it doesn't just come down to cinematic quality. It also comes down to how well a movie kind of resonates in my mind after I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some movies that they didn't really quite grab me, but I couldn't stop thinking about it after it was over. Uncut Gems did that to me. And I'm so glad that it did, because every time I've watched it like since then, I've loved it more and more and more. Little Women did that to me. I thought Little Women was a very strong movie when I saw it, but it lingered and it wouldn't go away. So I kept thinking about it more, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized I loved it. Yeah. So I often think about that. Everyone that listens to the podcast knows I have a rule that if I cry during a movie, I instantly bump up my grade 1 point all the time. So that's definitely a factor. Yeah. So that's definitely a factor sometimes, but I don't really take that into account when I'm choosing like my best of the year. Sure. As far as the animated things are concerned, I mean, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was in my top 10 that year, so I would have personally nominated it for Best Picture. Lego Movie, I remember liking, and I remember thinking it should have gotten a Best Animated Feature nomination and should have won that year. Best Picture, though, I don't know if I would slide it into my top 10 as Best Picture that year, personally.
I wouldn't have either.
Animated films rarely crack my top 10. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's because I'm holding them to such a high standard in terms of, thinking about like the all-time classics.
Sure.
In that category. I think like to the Disney Renaissance era and things like that. So off the top of my head, over the last couple of years, the only animated films that landed in my top 10 were Inside Out.
Yep.
Zootopia.
Yep.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
And I think I have to go all the way back to Toy Story 3 in 2010 probably to find another one.
Wow. So animated is actually my favorite genre. That's just like what I grew up on, like Disney classics, all of them. That's like my bread and butter. Pixar is my favorite studio. Nice. So like Coco, would that get in there?
Coco was in my top 20 that year.
Oh, that movie wrecked me. I can't
Oh,
wait for
I'm sure.
Soul. I want like, and there's so many of these movies that like, selfishly, I just like want them to come out now because I just want to see them. It's so bad, but it's okay. It's okay. Jackson Fleming, like La La Land in 2017 and West Side Story in 1962, how does a movie like those get not just so many nominations, but so many wins? Thanks. I think you kind of like feel like kind of like the musicals.
I think that getting nominations for musicals are pretty easy based on the Academy's taste and what they have traditionally gone for in the past.
Yep.
If you have a big sprawling musical that incorporates production design, flashy costumes, musicals have to do with sound a lot, so you get a sound mixing nomination. There's a song nomination in there somewhere. The acting is good. Like, it's very easy to get a lot of nominations. In terms of wins, once again, that has nothing to do with the genre. It has nothing to do with maybe even that particular film. It has everything to do with the competition that film is facing within a given year. Once again,
Totally.
it's all arbitrary.
Totally.
If you put those movies and you release them in a different year, everything changes.
You have no idea what could happen.
Correct.
Yeah. About two more ish. At MJC1213 has asked, you kind of answered this at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You can say it again, I guess. What got you into Oscar predictions?
Yeah, I mean, it was the fact that my favorite movie was a big Oscar winner. And
yeah.
But I don't know if that directly answers the question or gets to the root of the question. I think
might not be.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, sports, but for some people. So to me, it's like following a movie's box office performance, following its awards performance, and things of that nature. I would equivalent that to somebody being very interested into a sporting season or baseball, football, whatever it is.
Love it. Here's a good one. Mm-hmm. At Alexander Panda, for which film do you think Glenn Close should have won an Oscar? Mm-hmm.
Is it controversial if I say none?
I mean, wow. No.
And
I have a follow-up question to that.
Wait, hold on a minute. Dangerous Liaisons, that's what year was that again? I am having trouble remembering the year on that one.
I'll look it up while you're thinking.
I got it.
88.
88?
Yeah, I think so.
So, God. Oh, Glenn. I know people are like, really, here's the thing. I guess the easiest answer is that year, probably because Jodie Foster would win again for Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
So it's easy to say, give it to Jodie for Silence, take away the accused, but you don't know what's going to happen. It's easy in hindsight to say that. I love her in Fatal Attraction, but I wouldn't take it away from Cher, from Moonstruck. Right. Albert Nobbs, sorry, no. And the wife, I personally love Olivia Colman, like, to pieces in The Favorite. I wouldn't take it away from her. I really wouldn't.
Do you want to hear one of my most controversial Oscar opinions?
Surely.
And you're welcome to say, you're a ridiculous person, but I don't care. Glenn Close should have won for The Wife, and Olivia Colman should have been nominated for supporting. And won.
That was a...
I got so bothered that she was in the lead category. I don't know why it bothered me so much. She's not the lead. When I watched that movie, I'm like, she's not. Yes, it's called The Favorite, and The Favorite is like, it's her people, but I don't know why.
To this day, I think Emma Stone is the lead of The Favorite, but
exactly. Yeah. If like Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone are more leads than Olivia Colman, all three of them were brilliant. All three would have won an Oscar for whatever category it was, but for some reason, The Wife just got me. Like, Glenn Close just gives a masterclass in stillness
Yeah, I will admit she's
Invoke
really good in that movie.
silence,
Yeah.
her facial expressions, and just absolute. It is truly remarkable. I would have loved to see Olivia Colman win supporting. So I was very upset, happy she won, but also so sad for Glenn Close.
Once again, I don't get emotionally invested in that way. So I know that there are people out there that are utterly heartbroken that she doesn't have one. I get that.
I mean, it doesn't affect me to this day, but you know.
No, yeah, I'm thinking about my friend Kevin Jacobson right now. He's on my mind at the moment about this. But
Is he the same?
At the end of the day, The Favor was my number one favorite film of the year, and I would rather that film
Succeed.
It's just like Glenn Close not having an Oscar at this point is like something that we're just so accustomed to in our world of Oscar punditry that it's like, let's just move on to the next question.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up to that.
Okay, sure.
What do you think she will win for? Because it's either going to, I mean, because, you know, God forbid something happens, but like she has Hillbilly Elegy coming out. And if she doesn't win for that, my immediate thing is Sunset Boulevard.
I don't think Sunset Boulevard is going to happen. And my prediction with Hillbilly Elegy is that I don't think that I don't think so. I just don't think it's happening. I don't
think it will ever happen?
No, I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, well, I don't know if you know from Twitter or anything, but I'm obviously a huge superhero fan. So this person asks a good question for me, at least. Jack says, then this is the last question, by the way. Why was Endgame not a Best Picture nomination, but Black Panther was? Is it true that voters tend to avoid superhero movies when doing the Best Picture nominations? I have an answer for this, but I'm curious what yours is.
One does not mean that the other naturally happens. You could ask the question, why does Get Out get nominated, but Us doesn't? You know what I mean? I think that in the end, once again, it's like I was saying before, it's all about the film year. It's all about the competition. There are so many factors at play here that at a certain point, it just doesn't matter anymore. Release date matters. Box office matters. Cultural impact matters. I think that if Black Panther had never happened, I think Endgame would have looked a lot better for that nomination.
Interesting. I'd never thought of that.
Yeah, I think that if, because I mean, you got to look at it. I look at it from that perspective. If one didn't happen, then they would have gotten around to it eventually, and it probably would have happened then for Endgame in that case. But because Black Panther had just happened the year before, there is this idea of, okay, we've been there, we've done that, and they just don't like the horror genre. They don't view this genre as superhero genre as a serious genre. It is what it is. It sucks that that's reality. You need to be groundbreaking. You need to be like a phenomenon the way that Black Panther was in order to break through that. Also, too, and I hate saying this, but there is also the POC element of, patting yourselves on the back. We recognize this movie. So I know people want to believe it's all about merit and such, but it rarely is. It really is. It's more about sending a message sometimes.
Absolutely.
And it's very, very rare that you can do both. So and that's like how I feel about Parasite last year. Parasite, even though it was undoubtedly the number one film of the year for critics, audiences, everybody, it also feels very much like we rewarded a foreign language film. We've been there. We've done that. Don't expect to see that happen again now for a very long time.
I felt the same way. Hopefully it's not true, because some of the best movies are not from this country.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I think Bong put on the performance of a lifetime during his campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, people also have to remember, too, the director is the star of a campaign a lot of the time. And that's extremely important. So it's part of the reason why Christopher Nolan doesn't get recognized the same way that people think he should. He's not really great on the campaign trail. He does not do well at the parties. He comes off very cold to people. Ridley Scott is a very, very similar way. And then you have people like Guillermo del Toro and Bong Joon-ho, and they're just like great people that everybody wants to be around. Ryan Johnson, I met Ryan Johnson this year, and I knew he was going to get that nomination for Knives Out because he was so great at all the parties, and he was just such a personable guy, and you just wanted to be around him. And I think that that really helps. Once again, it's a campaign at the end of the day, and they're all putting on a show. If you can't campaign and you can't put on a show, you're not going to really get that far. And then you have people like Brad Pitt where they're like, I'm not really going to campaign. Sometimes not campaigning is campaigning.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you're Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and you just got to be lucky in that case. I remember Monique didn't campaign for Precious, and that performance was one that was able to stand on its own. Once again, in that film year, if there had been another performance at that same level, who knows what could have happened as a result of that.
I'm going to ask one last question because you are titled Next Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
As of, what day is this? Saturday, March 28th, 2020 at 3:25 p.m. Matt Neglia, what is winning Best Picture at this year's upcoming Oscars?
Are we even having an Oscars this year?
Let's assume we are, my friend. Let's go. I'm ready for it. Next Best Picture. This is just you, not your team. I want to know. What is Mank?
Mank.
That's that's my number 2, I think.
You know why?
Because well, I have an idea, but go ahead.
Netflix is coming super close each year. David Fincher is overdue.
Yes, he is.
It's a movie about the most well-regarded, popular movie in cinephile circles of all time.
Yep.
It is also a movie that is on a streaming service right now that, for all we know, is going to be the only way that we have the ability to watch movies to get us through this pandemic.
Yep.
There is a narrative there in the sense that while other forms to watch entertainment are struggling at the moment, Netflix was there to be able to provide us still with cinematic quality and entertainment in a way that I think it could just be like, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about like these arbitrary factors sometimes. And this is no idea of like how the movie's quality is whatsoever. We assume it's going to be good, but we don't really know.
Great cast, great team.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think that that's like the best bet right now is to think that because of the world that we're living in at the moment with the pandemic, Netflix and all these other streaming websites are going to be seen in such a positive light for helping to get us through this very, very tough time. And I think that project has a lot going for it. So
that's all good points. Let's see if you're right. If there A is an Oscars and B, if you actually end up being right, they'll be very, very impressive. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, taking the time, even though we all have, well, not really, depends on the person, have lots of time, but I'm so glad that I was your first person to do a video with. I'm so honored. I love everything that Next Best Picture is. I listen to the podcast. I check your website. I like looking at everyone's predictions. It's been such a joy to just chat with you and finally meet you. Hopefully we'll be able to actually meet once the world isn't exploding.
Hopefully.
Tell everyone where to, I'll put a nice little thing under you, but tell everyone where they can follow you and, I know you guys have a Patreon. Feel free to throw it out there.
Yeah, so you can find us on literally all of the social media networks at Next Best Picture. The podcast, even if you just type in Next Best Picture, it'll pop right up. It's called the Next Best Picture Podcast, but nextbestpicture.com is where all of the work lives from all of our very, very talented writers. All of their social media links and Twitter handles can all be found there as well, so you can follow them on Twitter. But Instagram, we're on Facebook. We pretty much have a presence everywhere. And as you said before, the Next Best Picture is not just what's going to win Best Picture, but it's also about trying to find what's going to be the next cinematic quality piece of entertainment, what is around the corner. So we're always looking forward to what is to come. And right now, even though that does look bleak at the moment, there is still a lot of really, really quality stuff being released on VOD right now and on streaming services. So we are actively reviewing those and getting those out there for people so that this way they can find what is that next best thing that I am going to watch. Exactly. So I really appreciate being on here today. I had a really, really good time.
Good.
I really, really appreciate you, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Thank you for being here. We'll do this again, maybe, hopefully soon, because I'm sure we'll both be like, we need to do something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, anytime, my friend. And my friends, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Again, next best picture. I'm putting this way because you're on that side. They are amazing. Follow all of them. Great writers, great chats that they have. I really enjoy watching them. Support them in any way you can. Support art, life. Keep yourself safe. Wash your hands. Shower. Don't touch people. Don't be gross. Thank you for watching. Shalom, my friends.